I'm Shimoli, Operations Director at Ravon. I'm really excited to introduce you to Pulse Online, a series of expert interviews. So today's episode is with our very own Nick Phipps, CRO Lead at Ravon. So Nick, let's get started. So where do you draw the line between optimising for conversion and protecting brand experience?
Classic cop-out answer, it depends. So I think certain luxury brands have like real brand recognition, super fans, the product recognition's there that it almost doesn't matter. They don't need to optimize that online experience. They can put a lot more effort into, creating proper relationships with sales staff and the in-store experience. There's not many brands that fall into that bracket. Those brands are kind of, Hermes, Chanel, Fendi. Those guys are like operating at a different level that the online experience really doesn't come into it too much. There is also there's still like a phase of consideration that those types of customers might use the website for, but optimizing for that versus what we would typically look to optimize for online is quite different. So with that in mind, like that layer below luxury, so, premium and maybe some luxury brands too, who do rely on those online sales, I think they should focus on product discoverability, product detail. It's all about like how they portray that product online and making things easy to find. So using smart product recommendations, for example, to allow people to kind of see the breadth of what they offer. You're unlikely to see success when using really super pushy CRO tactics.
Give us a few examples.
So like creating a sense of urgency,
Scarcity messages,
countdown timers, and X amount of people have just bought this product. Like people who are operating in that luxury and premium space, they're not going to respond well to that, and it's also not going to be perceived well from the brand side. Like you wouldn't see Chanel like doing a countdown timer for like a product that's about to sell out, for example. So I think there's this piece around optimizing product pages and product discoverability that needs to be elevated beyond your typical high street brand. And I think the other thing is about, rather than thinking about motivating users and creating senses of urgency and things like that, it's about removing barriers. So removing friction from the journey, removing any potential distractions, giving users lots of different options to how they can purchase. I think those two areas are probably where you draw the line and how I would approach like a premium or luxury brand.
So Nick, next question. So how can data-driven decisions coexist with brand guardianship?
So I think firstly that they're definitely not mutually exclusive. And I think that collaboration early on is probably the best way of building a solid relationship. So ensuring that brand guidelines are documented and shared with optimizers, whoever that is in the business, whether it's an agency or an in-house team. Typically in-house teams will have like a better understanding of the brand anyway, so it kind of goes hand in hand. But where that relationship doesn't exist, and like for us, for example, coming in as an agency, having access to somebody who is a brand guardian in one format or another is really important. And I always encourage like cross-team collaboration with CRO anyway, because it touches so many different departments. If you think about the full breadth of it, you've everything from research to testing is involved in it. And where we can bring in extra brains and extra ideas, it's never a bad thing. So I think there's sharing brand guidelines with everybody, but also from the optimization team's perspective, it's making sure that the brand team are involved. So whether that's just, here's a design, can you sign it off, so that they feel like they've got a stake in the program, or even better, they've probably got ideas swimming around,
Yep.
So if you think about, I don't know, let's think about a creative team wanting to maybe get some budget to do some videos.
Yeah.
But they don't have the business case in order to secure the funds needed to run a shoot. CRO can actually help them with that business case by testing the impact. So, shoot a few videos here and there, get a test running on a PDP and see what impact it has. Hopefully, they see an uplift, and then therefore they've got that business case to be able to go ahead and build that. So that cross collaboration is just going to help everybody feel involved as part of the program, and I think that's the only way to do it.
I mean, we do this a lot, don't we, where we have to collaborate between project teams and CRO teams to make sure that they're mutually benefiting, I guess, as well. So
Yeah, and I think that in a typical world, silos exist, whether or not you want them to. Like, everybody's got their day job that they're focused on, and it can be hard to get people in a room. Like, you've just come back from Amsterdam doing a big cross collaboration piece, and it takes a lot of effort to bring those people in and get the agendas ready, and make sure everyone's on the same page. But if you can do it at least quarterly and bring in different people from around the business, it's just going to be beneficial to everyone.
yeah, for sure. Right. So next, how should the average brand be approaching customer feedback?
I mean, firstly, if you're not doing it, you absolutely have to be. And I think there's two things that I would start with. The first thing is some form of survey. So and I'm glad you asked. Vivant have a tool called an
No
app called
way.
Census. A little plug there, which is a post-purchase survey. So super simple. It's set up on, somebody buys something, you ask
And the
whatever
on-site
questions.
survey.
And we've developed the on-site version. Yes, you are right. There's other tools that do it, similar things as well. So, if you've got Hotjar or Mouseflow or something like that, it's quite easy to set up an online survey. What I would say is that generic feedback probably isn't going to yield the answers you want. You want it to be like a curated thing. So if it's based on an action that somebody's performed, maybe they've completed a purchase, maybe they're about to leave, exit intent's like a super easy one. But the whole point is just getting into the habit of asking customers for feedback. The one question that I always tell brands to ask is if it's on an exit intent, or maybe users hesitated or something, I'd be asking, what stopped you from purchasing from us today? It's a nice, broad, open question. And if you collect enough responses, you'll start to see patterns in the feedback you get.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get classic things like price and things like that, but there might be usability issues that come up. Once you've kind of collected enough data, you can group the things into themes.
Yeah.
And those answers and those insights give you something to latch onto. An idea could form, several ideas might form off the back of that one piece of feedback. So that'd be the first thing that I would do. Is just super easy to run. Apps are easy to come by. It doesn't cost a lot to get them set up. The second thing is a bit more involved, which is remote user testing. So asking potential customers or lookalike customers based on a profile, asking them to complete a task essentially on the website. Might be go and find a pair of shoes in size 8 and add them to your basket, complete the purchase. And what you'll do is they'll commentate as they do it. So talk about the things that they're struggling with. They'll talk about things that they've noticed that they don't like. The screen will be recorded. So you'll get really good anecdotal, but also more importantly, you can actually see what they're doing, because users say one thing and do another. It's like a classic user research thing. So yeah, coupling those two things together. So you got that feedback from a sort of anecdotal standpoint. You've got the screen recording, task completion based sort of research. And I think if you can just do that once a quarter, every 6 months or something, and start feeding that insight back into internal teams, whether it's dev teams, design teams, whoever it is, marketing teams, I think you'll be in a much stronger place than you are if you're not asking any questions.
Yeah, of course. Can you give a couple of examples of our clients who do that, or what size of client would typically be, operating a model where they do have focused testing?
I think, to be honest, anyone that we work with will be doing it, because
Who do we work with, Nick?
Step one. So shameless example, we've got Victoria Beckham represent. These guys are doing regular customer feedback. And it's all used as part of our research toolkit. You know, research is massive. As goes, you know, qualitative and quantitative data is a massive part of how we drive a CRO program. And without those insights, ideas just pop into our heads and we could test them, but you're probably not going to see any leverage. So yeah, anyone that we're working with will definitely have it, because it's like the first thing I do when we start working with someone.
Excellent. So how do you measure the impact of brand-led UX changes that don't necessarily impact conversion?
So firstly, try and test them. So if we know a brand change is going to happen anyway, let's plan that into the roadmap. And that might be, you know, because of a business decision made or a rebrand or something happening that's outside of our program. That happens all the time. Like we have to adapt to these things. So if we can get it into the roadmap and test it, even if it's an MVP version of it or just a piece of it, let's try and test it. But rather than looking for a significant uplift in those conversion metrics that we typically measure for, we'd be looking for it's like a do no harm test. So, or also known as a non-inferiority test.
I prefer do not harm.
Yeah, it's a bit easier to understand, isn't it? Basically, if we test that thing and the metrics tank, then we know that there's a potential problem. Maybe we need to iterate the UX change that's coming down the line. So we're basically trying to mitigate against risk, because there'll be some form of development budget going against that UX change. So how can we make sure that we're not risking that change when we know we're going to have to roll it back because it's going to have this potential negative impact? For the most part, you'll probably be fine. And in that case, like level metrics is a win. So I think it's just trying to test it. If you can't test it and, you know, it's being pushed by the CEO and you've got no choice and it's got to be on there tomorrow, then I'd at least try and gather some feedback about it. Can we do some usability testing with a prototype or with the design? Can we just show it to a few potential customers and see what they think and just get some anecdotal feedback? I think some form of validation is better than just sticking it on and hoping for the best. Especially as, you know, measuring impact before and after is just so difficult because of seasonality and changes to traffic volumes, etc. It's not the best way to measure impact. So I think, yeah, some form of validation or do no harm test is definitely how I would go.
So essentially you're kind of waiting for making sure it doesn't tank versus expecting an uplift from a brand.
Yeah, and it's setting those expectations, I think, you know, and also letting people who are involved in that project know that that's something that you can help them with.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that if they have to push this change, they would have considered the design. It would have been well thought out. It's not like just a flash in the pan thing that someone's decided to stick on the site. It will be in line with brand. It will be thought about. So they don't want it to tank either.
Yeah.
And if you can say to them, hey, look, we're over here. We've got this testing program.
Yeah.
Like, stick it in our roadmap. We'll help you with that. Like, again, going back to my point earlier around collaboration, bring those people on the journey with you and let them know what the capabilities are of testing. It's not, CRO isn't just about the conversion rate and metrics going up. It's kind of all encompassing experimentation.
Yeah, I do find with the brands that we have as well, it's definitely an education piece of what CRO actually is, because it has definitely modernized over time.
I mean, it's got the crappiest name ever. That's why.
Crow.
I mean, yeah, that makes it even worse when people say crow. Conversion rate optimization. If you don't know what that is, what do you think it is? Well, you think it's like increasing conversions.
Yeah.
But when you unpack it and you think about the whole process and what value it delivers, it's actually all about understanding your customers in a deeper way.
100%.
And one of those sort of tools in that toolkit is A/B testing. And ultimately, A/B testing is just another research method because you're gathering insight based on a question you're putting out there. So for people to just think it's about those metrics and those numbers, education definitely needs to be done around broadening the scope of that.
Definitely end-to-end customer experience is probably how we kind of talk about it now. But
yeah, and you know, when we think about our other services and we think about like e-commerce in general, like we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to enhance an experience online, and CRO is just a methodology of implementing those
Yeah,
changes.
for sure.
And de-risking development budgets, and also like building business cases for what works and what doesn't, while always learning more about our customers. So it should all be combined. There shouldn't be like these separate streams.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. Thank you, Nick. So an interesting one for me and for the audience, I hope. How can brands report testing results in a way that builds confidence for internal teams?
So most people within the brand probably don't care about all of the little nuanced detail behind the statistical models that we use, and the things that CRO people tend to get excited about.
Yeah.
I actually hate it. Sample sizes, the power, the different statistical frameworks that we use, like trying to forget that stuff and just act as if it's implied and focus on the commercial impact. That's ultimately what people care about.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's going to get the attention of the C-suite. It's the thing that's going to help build business cases for securing more budget for development and things. So there's like 2 artifacts that we create as part of a program. So the first one is like a snapshot view of what we've tested, and we literally create a slide. It's a single slide that includes a summary of what we tested, or basically it's our hypothesis. So summary of what we tested, how many people saw it, where it was tested, how long it ran for. That just instills a little bit of confidence that we've shown it to enough people.
Yeah.
And then obviously the result of that, highlighting the key bits of information. So what was the uplift? And then showing some sort of visual so that someone can just look at it and clearly see the difference between the two. So if they don't read all of that stuff, they can just see that's what we tested. And then the big one that we put on there that is quite difficult to quantify sometimes, but it's the potential revenue impact that the test had.
Yeah. Which
So
is what clients want.
that's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But because I love to hedge my bets, and it's a nervy thing to
Of course.
to report on, because if you think if a test runs for 2 to 4 weeks, and I'm thinking of an example in my head, but I'm probably not allowed to talk about it
Yeah.
in terms of actual numbers, but ran a test on a PDP. We saw a 5% uplift in purchases. So we know during that period what the average order value would have been. So we can look at, okay, so based on the average order value, 5% uplift, if that was shown to everybody all the time, it would equal X. Yeah. But that's just that slice of time across a whole year. So you'd think, well, just times it by 12, surely.
Yeah. Girl math.
But yeah, exactly. But seasonality, stuff changes,
Yeah.
Even macro things, economical changes will have an impact that we can't predict. So
we can barely predict year on year. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Things change so quickly. And if we ran that test during a sale period, it's going to be totally different to whether we did it out of sale.
Yeah.
Are we approaching Christmas?
Too many variables.
Of these things. So what we tend to do is say, like, here's a potential monthly impact. And we temper that number by like reducing it by a certain percentage.
Yeah.
There's also the sort of degradation over time. So as people's expectations of the internet changes and of shopping experiences changes and increases, an idea that worked 12 months ago might be the norm now, and actually doesn't have that sort of novelty effect that it had when it was first implemented. So you've got to allow for seasonality as well as the degradation of the impact of an idea. So we include it because it's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah,
but it's got a hell of a caveat against it.
Yeah.
But it helps to demonstrate the potential value. But it also tells its own story in that we can't just run this one thing, leave it forever, and hope and see like a steady growth, because it's just not how it works. Like, we can demonstrate that we need to keep topping up that and adding compounding value over time. Otherwise, you're not going to see the benefit of changes ongoing. So that's the first thing. So that snapshot view.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is building like a library of these things. So that slide deck will continue to grow. It's a nice visual. You can share that with anybody in the company and they should be able to roughly understand what you've tested. The other thing is the detail. So we tend to use Airtable to document every test that we've run, all of the results, but most importantly, what we learn.
Yeah.
So tests are going to lose. Tests lose all the time. As long as we're learning from them, it's not been a waste of time. We've learned something. But if that learning just sits in a spreadsheet somewhere and never gets looked at, then we might as well have not run it. So we need to make sure that it's in a format that people can share and interact with. So that's why we use Airtable, because we can tag up all of our ideas. So if you wanted to go in and see, right, I'm wearing their hat, so I'll just talk about these guys. If you worked for Frankie Shop and you wanted to see, right, we ran a test, or we want to run a test on a PDP, let's go and see what tests we've run in the past. They could, in theory, search that database, tagged by PDP, tagged by winning test, and then see all of the results and learnings that they gain from tests that have been run there.
I'm going to throw a curveball here.
Oh, God.
Got like 3 tests that if you had no parameters from a brand, it's a huge brand, right? Say we won Burberry, just say we won them one day. What are 3 tests that you would want to run for that brand, for that website, that you think you can make a commercial impact on? Is that too broad a question?
It's not too broad a question, but you're going to hate my answer.
Go on. It depends on the data.
It absolutely would. The things that would have a commercial impact and that I would be confident in testing would have to be backed on by research.
Yeah.
I'd want to understand where the potential blockers are in those journeys and unlock those things, rather than thinking, we ran this test over here, I'm just going to copy and paste it and run it over there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the misconceptions that is in the industry around CRO, is that everyone's got this secret checklist of like the best possible website.
I keep seeing it on LinkedIn. There's loads of lists.
Just comment CRO and I'll send it today. Those things are good for inspiration.
Yeah.
And if you want to get started in testing, by all means, download them, start there.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to have an impact with a brand like Burberry and you don't do the research and spend time understanding deeply what motivates those customers, you're going to devalue the brand, because you're just going to throw, we'll stick a like a shipping threshold test on a cart and hope for the best. Like, it's just not the way that you would approach it. So I would need to do that research first. Yeah. So, if Burberry want me to do that, then
there you go, folks. There's literally no scrappy at CRO here. No, I think that obviously makes more sense. Clients, the first thing that I always hear is, we want to hit the ground running. And it's that education piece again about what it is that you need. Every single client is unique. Every single project is unique. And I say it across the ecom all the time. Everyone loves this 80-20 rule, being able to standardize. We are literally the most we can standardize in anything in ecom. And I'm now learning about CRO is maximum 20%, because, the amount of in-depth analysis that's needed per client is clearly a lot broader than people anticipate. So, you just have to be a bit more patient with the results of CRO as well, because you do need that time to explore.
Yeah, it's going to have you're going to build a better foundation if you spend the time doing that research and understanding the customer, because every customer base is different. And I think that until you do that research and understand them, you could be optimizing for a brand you think looks like your brand that you're working with, but it just has no bearing on what your customers think of you.
Good experimentation culture. What does that look like in a typical fashion brand?
So I think that experimentation culture isn't widely adopted. There's very few companies out there who have a true culture where everyone's on board with it, all the departments have got it. I think there might be pockets within different companies and brands, but it's still gaining traction. And the reason is, one, you kind of touched on it with the word culture. Changing the culture of a business is fraught with hurdles and roadblocks, especially when you think about something like web development, where It touches so many different departments, so many processes are already there. How do you interrupt that with a new process when it's been running that way for the last 10, 15 years? Like doing that and proving the value of experimentation takes time. But in order to kind of get there, there's like 3 schools of thought on how to create that culture or a team that can manifest that culture. So there's a centralized experimentation team, decentralized, and a center of excellence. So centralized teams are the easiest to implement. They tend to be, like a dedicated team of experimenters, including researchers, designers, testers, all of that stuff. And also agencies fit in there as well, because you're almost working, as a standalone team, and it's your
An
job
extension.
to collaborate out. But you're responsible for the output. You're responsible for all the documentation, the processes. Everything's kind of contained within that team.
Yeah.
A decentralized approach is much harder, and typically more mature companies and brands will adopt that, where they've like transformed it from the centralized team. And the decentralized one is basically there's an experimentation champion in all the different departments. So across sales and marketing, across the whole business, you'll have people enabling people to experiment with different parts of the journey. So, a team might be responsible for retention. They've got an experimentation person in that team to help them run tests. And then the center of excellence is kind of a hybrid of the other two. So you've got a central team who kind of oversees the whole of experimentation, but then you've got champions around the business kind of feeding back into that. So for most of the brands that we work with and that we talk to, I would recommend that if they're starting an experimentation process or team, starting with a centralized model is the way to go. You can hire a couple of people and probably utilize other people from around the business to kind of make up that team. You might already have UX designers, so you borrow a bit of their time. You might have developers, you can borrow a bit of their time. But hiring that first person to be the champion of experimentation internally is like a real strong place to start. And whether you do that in-house or you outsource that to an agency, it doesn't really matter. It's starting on that journey and then working through the different iterations of what that culture looks like and what you're trying to build.
And where would you say, in that hybrid model, where would you see, a Vervont fitting into?
With an agency?
Brand? Yeah.
So, I mean, I keep touching on it, but collaboration again. I think if we're involved in a brand, and I touched on a couple earlier with Victoria Beckham and Represent, we work really closely with their internal teams and act basically as an extension of their team.
Yeah.
We're an additional resource to them. We provide them that centralized experimentation team. And as long as there's two-way collaboration, and as long as we can try and champion experimentation within the brand and be allowed the space to bring people in from the retention team, from the customer service team, from commercial teams, like as long as we're allowed that space to do that, then we'll see the programs grow and mature.
Thank you so much, Nick. That was really insightful. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching. If you'd love to know more about Vervont and the wonderful things that we do, please visit vervont.com.